Indiana Jones is a terrible archaeologist. Let's talk about it. To preface, I just want to say that Indiana Jones has merit, it is well made films, and has sparked the careers of many archaeologists. Yet, when you watch the movie through the lens of an archaeologist, you realize he is truly terrible at his job. While the movies were made in the 80s, they were set in the 1930s, which makes Indiana Jones firmly a cultural historical archaeologist. But while cultural historical archaeologists were just beginning to better understand the cultural importance of artifacts beyond just their monetary value, and developed the four mechanisms of change, Indiana Jones seemed to be stuck in the mindset of antiquarianism, which was centered on collecting and it glorified looting. Indiana Jones can easily be labeled a modern-day looter. He chased valuable artifacts and ignored their larger historical context and the historical value of the sites they were found in. In fact, the people who followed the most proper methodology and legal processes were the evil Nazi archaeologists that Jones fought in the first and third movie. Jones, on the other hand, often trafficked and sold historical artifacts when it suited his needs. Despite this, one of the most iconic lines from the Indiana Jones franchise is, "It belongs in a museum." Yet, very little of what Jones discovers actually makes its way into a museum. Even when he does manage to hold on to these artifacts, rather than being returned to their culture of origin or going to said culture or country's museum, he usually just takes it back with him to his museum in America, robbing the people of who said artifact belongs to of a piece of their cultural heritage. In the second Indiana Jones movie, however, Jones does not follow this mantra. In fact, the main conflict of the movie revolves around the recovery of the Shivalinga, a sacred stone with mythical powers, to the fictitious Indian village of Mayapur. And when he does find and eventually take the stone back from the evil cult who took it, he returns it to the village instead of taking it to a museum, when he actually says it doesn't belong in a museum, it belongs with his people. This can be seen as a redeeming characteristic of his archaeological career. Yet, even during this adventure, Jones completely ignores the historical context of the sites he visits and then usually destroys. Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom engages in massive amounts of cultural misrepresentation and appropriation and is on the whole incredibly racist. The film features characters of Indian people, mocks Hindu spirituality and Indian cuisine, and treats the people of Mayapur as helpless victims who need a strong white man to save their village. In almost every instance, Jones's goal is not to understand culture, but to steal it. Jones completely ignores the context of artifacts unless it directly affects his goal, which is usually to find some valuable biblical trinket that will in the end disappear with a life lesson left in its place. He takes no notes of sites, no photographs, makes no maps. Everything except for his own goal is ignored. He completely overlooks sites rife with historical significance that are often so well preserved that if properly studied, they could contribute a greater understanding to the historical record. Not once over the course of 3 movies does he at least do the basic necessity of labeling the artifacts he finds with site location, provenance, matrix, and the materials they were found with. He makes no attempt to preserve the historical and archaeological record. And while it's important to acknowledge that archaeology is in its nature destructive, as once you excavate a site, there's no way to return it to its previous condition of untouched history. Jones completely obliterates this idea. While real modern archaeologists will use ground-penetrating radar and LiDAR to avoid disturbing or destroying sites with important cultural meaning and significance, and have for decades chosen to only excavate small portions of sites to understand the historical cultural context without completely destroying it, the majority of Jones's excavation occurs via explosives and gunfire as he's chased through pristine historical sites with no care for their preservation. While it can be said that Indiana Jones is a great adventurer, there is no way he can be recognized in modern archaeology as anything but a looter.